It's really good to see all of you here tonight. We're so glad that you've come. This is one of the special events of the year, certainly one of the top 2 or 3 lectures that we provide here at the university, and it really has historic value to us, not the least because of its longevity, but also because of the distinguished lecturers that we have had in the long series of Prince-Chavanne lecturers, and tonight is no exception to that, and you'll hear an introduction later of our friend to Sue and me and our family, Drayton McLane. We're sorry Elizabeth couldn't be here tonight, Drayton, but Drayton and I have a long history together, and he has, we were talking about him the other night in our family and what he meant to our son Michael. I won't bore you with that particular story, but our son Michael had a really life-changing experience here in Houston many years ago when he was a college student, and really it was thanks to Drayton and Drayton's spontaneous generosity. He was asking me about my children one day, and I was telling him about them, and he said, well, I've got and I told him about Michael, and he said, well, I've got an idea for Michael. And so Michael came and did an internship with the Astros. They were the only team, maybe the only franchise, I'm sure, probably still in Major League Baseball that has a full-time chaplain. You certainly were at the time. And so Michael was an intern in that chaplaincy experience, and really it changed his life. So we will always be grateful to Drayton and Elizabeth for that generosity. But another reason why this lecture series is so special is because of the founders. This lecture series is founded in the name of the parents of the Chavannes. And so tonight, representing the Chavanne family is Claire and Oscar Turner. And there are many members of the family, but the Turners are here tonight. And Claire is a recent past member of the Board of Trustees of Houston Baptist University, just a tremendous trustee. Well, was on the board when I was called here as president, and is a great friend of the university and a great friend of our family as well. And that's true of the entire family. But Harry and Hazel Chavanne founded this chair and named it for their parents, hence the 2 names, Prince and Chavanne. And so that is the first reason, and perhaps foremost reason, why this is such an important lectureship in the life of HBU. I have the privilege of introducing Mohan Karuvla, who'll come, the Dean of the Business School. He'll come and bring our invocation. He'll introduce Rusty Brooks, the holder of the Prince-Chavanne chair, and then we will quickly get to Drayton McLane, and there'll be a question and answer time at the end of his remarks. But welcome to all of you. Drayton, welcome here.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for this wonderful gathering of students, faculty, and friends of the university. We thank you for the friends of the university who are here today, whose vision and support for Christian higher education and academic excellence has made this event and the facility we are in a reality. We thank you for Mr. McLane's presence here. It's my prayer that the words of a faithful business leader like Mr. McLane, that those words will impact the students who are here today as they prepare themselves to be faithful business leaders of tomorrow. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Let me invite Dr. John Brooks, the holder of the Prince-Chavanne Chair of Business Ethics, to come and introduce our speaker. Thanks.
Well, thank you all for being here tonight. And it's my opportunity and charge to introduce our speaker. And oftentimes in events like this, when you have a speaker, they literally do not need an introduction. But there are several things about our speaker tonight that the average person listening to him talk really would not know. I provided for you in the program a brief, very, very brief presentation of some of the accomplishments of our speaker, Drayton McLane. But with all the business accomplishments are there, these things that are real time burners, being a visionary leader, empowering people to carry out those visions, and to certainly amass a certain amount of great wealth. A lot of that is spent in terms of time to free up time to do what these people really want to do. And I think if you were to actually pin Mr. McLane down and say, what is it that you really want to do? And he says, well, all those things are on the second page of the resume that don't have as much notoriety, but are service-related activities. And two great areas that Drayton McLane has been extremely successful in doing, and that is helping to raise money and provide leadership for a variety of nonprofit and charitable organizations, from hospitals to especially his activities with the Boy Scouts, something that I know are a big passion of his. Also to provide service and leadership and charitable donations, especially for Christian universities, and that segues over into some of the fundamental principles that allowed this man to become what he's become, and that's his beliefs, his attention to the important things in life, especially service and giving back from those that need some extra type of help. And when he put himself in the position of coming to talk to you, he obviously could talk to many larger audiences than what we have at this campus. But I really feel like that the Lord led him here and to empower him to give you some of the insight into his life and how that the concept of Christian business ethics is alive and well, at least in the McLane group, in the personage of Drayton McLane Jr. Mr. McLane, the audience is yours.
Well, thank you, and this is a beautiful setting. Boy, I sure don't deserve this. I've spent most of my life in the grocery distribution business, and I have enjoyed wandering through large grocery distribution centers all over the world, and then come in here and see the organ, the environment here. This is kind of overwhelming. I just might stay here for 2 or 3 hours. But to Robert and Sue Sloan, they have been very good friends of Elizabeth and I for 20 plus years. And we've had lots of great times together, and I've always gotten excited about Robert's vision, his zeal to get big things done, and I know you all have seen this here in Houston. And so Robert and Sue, thank you for what you all have done in your Christian influence. And then Michael, he spoke of his son Michael, and Michael is in the ministry today, is he not? And who in their life ever was at a stage that they really weren't sure what they wanted to do next? I sure had stages like that. And I think, wasn't that Michael's? He wasn't quite sure, and we got him involved in a chaplaincy program with the Houston Astros. He worked with us for a year or so, and I think that helped move him to more steps in his life. And that was what I'd like to talk about today, ethics. Today, if we look around and we marvel, enjoy watching great athletes perform. We watch NFL football today, and we look at those young men and their skills and ability. Do you really realize they've been doing that since they were about 6 or 7 years of age? And as they came up through middle school, particularly in high school, they were refined and worked hard, exercise, skills, and ability. In Major League Baseball that I've had some experience, the hardest single thing to do in professional sports is what? Does anybody know? Hit a baseball. Football coaches, basketball coaches, hockey coaches, they'll all tell you the hardest single thing to do is hit a baseball, because that ball's going to come whistling in there at about 96, 97 miles an hour. In the last 5 feet, it's going to turn left, turn right, come straight down, or come straight at you. The hitter has no clue. And he, through experience, has gotten to that level. The average major league player, whether he's 18 years old and drafted out of high school or drafted out of college at 21 years of age, spends 6.5 years in the minor leagues. 6.5 years. Of those that are drafted, only 18% of them will ever play 1 year in the major leagues. only 8% will ever play 8 years or more, 5 years or more in the major leagues, and only 0.5% will have a significant career, such as Jeff Bagwell or Craig Biggio or some of the others, Craig Reynolds or many of the others that we know. All these athletes, whatever sport it is, got there through dedication, preparation, personal sacrifice, learning from others. Christian ethics is the same way. We don't just write that down on a piece of paper and say, I'm going to be very ethical. I'm going to do everything proper. We have to work at it. It's the training that an athlete receives is the same training that each of us is we're going to practice our Christian faith and work at it. We have to work at it every day of our life. And there are a number of things we have to do for it to really take a hold and make a difference in our lives. Training is one of them. The second one I'd like to talk about is who we select to be our friends. I grew up in a small town in central Texas, Cameron, Texas, a little town of 5,000. I had two older sisters. Joanne was 4 years older and Kate was 2 years older. We had the most devout, loving Christian mother anyone could ever have. And our mother said the same thing to each of us at least 5,000 times. Anybody have a mother like that? And we had to sit in a chair in her bedroom and she said it. And her story 5,000 times, she said the most important thing in your life ever is your faith and belief in God, in Jesus Christ, in practicing your faith. Said the second most important thing in your life is your family, the love and admiration and support of your family. But she said the third one totally, completely dictates what you become in life, and that is who you select to be your friends. Said select them wisely and they'll lift you up. Make poor choices and they destroy your life. Well, as I was growing up in that small town, my mother had spies all over town. And I constantly had to sit in her bedroom and she talked about some of the poor choices that I was making. I couldn't wait till I was 18 years old and I went to Baylor University, 60 miles from Cameron. I thought I was done with this. I remember after about 6 or 7 weeks of the first semester I was at Baylor, I came home and my mother said, son, I'd like to sit down and you tell me about all your new friends. She still wanted to know, even though she didn't know them, she wanted to know. And I remember she was in Scott and White Hospital in Temple when she was 89 years old, was near death, and I was talking to her one Sunday afternoon. She still wanted to know. I was in my 50s. Who are your friends? Your friends will dictate. So as we get ethics, get going in life, get more responsibility, who you surround yourself with changes, enriches your life. So move forward with that. Then in life, as I got out of college and started working with my father in a family business in Cameron, my father kind of replaced my mother as influential in my adult life in trying to develop who I was. And my father was a very ethical, very stern person and came back and we had a small business that was doing grocery distribution in about a 50-mile radius of Cameron, Texas. And I was working with him and really enjoyed it and was learning how he had run that business. And my grandfather had started the business in 1894. And my dad, when he got out of college in 1921, went to work with his dad. And then in 1959, I got a chance to go to work with my dad. After about a year, my dad said, son, we got a problem here. Said, you're absorbing what we do, but that's not going to change this business dramatically and is not going to prepare you for the future. Said you're not going to really develop as a strong ethical leader unless you get a number of people that can give you new and different ideas. So he suggested that he had a friend in the grocery business in Florida, one in Illinois and one in California. And he said, I'm going to arrange for you to go spend time with each one of them. I was single, and I thought, boy, that is really a great idea, Dad. It was amazing. I would go visit an operation in Florida. I remember I came back, and a group I was working with in the business, I said, I got a big idea. And they said, great, what is it? And I explained something that I had seen them doing in Florida. I came back and was explaining it to the people I was working with, and we began to do that, and it worked. They thought I was so smart. I wasn't smart. I just absorbed what other people had said. But as you are around mentors and people that you admire and deeply respect, you need to be around people that have value to them. As I've had a series of mentors over the years, and I'm 75 and I still have 3 mentors that I spend at least 3 weekends every year with. But I try to select people, and 2 or 3 rules I have is you get mentors, you need to get mentors who have no relationship with you. They can't be in business with you or associates that you work with. They have something to gain by what they say to you. Or you can't get family members. They're prejudiced sometimes. And they are careful what they say to you. And then you need, and this was always easy for me, find somebody that's a whole lot smarter than you are. Who do we normally surround with friends? People we're comfortable with. People that's easy. People that's fun to be with. But if you get the right challenging mentor out there, he's going to really destroy you a lot of times and really have to work hard. But the last requirement of a mentor is to be around somebody that has impeccable integrity, and that will rub off on you. One of my mentors was a man named Mike O'Connor. Mike lived in Chicago. He was about 12 years older than I was, a whole lot smarter than I was, and was considered the foremost authority in food retailing all over the world. And I loved to travel with Mike. And we would see things, learn together, but I learned all sorts of things from Mike. He was challenging. He would tell me many times, he said, I now understand why you're not getting anywhere. You're not very smart. So when you have that mentor, be ready to be challenged by people. A number of years ago, we were in Germany looking at supermarkets throughout Germany. And we were going to travel from Bonn to Frankfurt. You remember getting on those Autobahns? Robert and Sue lived over there for years. You could go as fast as you wanted to and never got a ticket. Well, we were sailing one Sunday afternoon down the Autobahn in Germany, and Mike looked at me and said, Drayton, you want to build a good organization, something lasting. He said, the average life of a corporation in America is 27 years. Kind of shocking. He said, you look at the Fortune list of 500 companies, go back 5 years, and 20 to 25% of them are gone. They either merge, liquidate, or go out of business. He said, go back 10 years, and approximately 30 to 40% of them are gone. He said, they're very perishable. He said, if you want to build a lasting organization, and his question to me was, as we were sailing down the Autobahn, what is the most lasting organization in the history of the world? I'm business oriented, so I started talking about great companies in America. General Motors, IBM. I talked about Japanese companies, talked about German companies that were world leaders. And he let me go on and on and on. And again, he said to me, it's easy to see why you're not getting anywhere. You're not very smart. He asked me the question again, what's the most lasting organization in the history of the world? The church. I missed it. He said it's 4,000 or 7,000, however many years you want to go back, that it's that old, and it has prospered as it moved forward. And he said people give their life for it. That's why most wars are fought. They give their money to it, and they give their time to it. And he said, you're trying to pay people big salaries and give them huge benefits to inspire them. But it says, why does the church go for 4,000 or 7,000 years? And he said, it stands for something. It's value. It's something that's everlasting. It helps other people. And he said, if you're going to build a good organization, you need to focus your business. It can be a for-profit business, but it has to have values. It has to inspire people. It has to make them feel good about what they do. And they'll devote it to them. And he said, Drayton, I've watched you in your offices. I've sat there, I've watched you. He said, you're the worst manager I've ever seen. He said, you're terrible. He said, you talk on the phone all the time. You're in meetings big part of the day. You're really not doing the job you should be doing. And I said, what in the world are you talking about? He said, well, let's get back to the church. He said, what is the center of the church? It's the pastor, the rabbi, the priest, whomever in that faith it is. He said, watch what his job is. He doesn't sit in endless meetings. He doesn't talk on the phone all day. His job is communications. His job is to communicate the faith that that church stands for to that generation and to prepare the next generation. And he said, if you're going to be a strong leader and others that work with you in your organization are going to be strong leaders, you've forgotten what your job is. You're not communicating to the people. At that time, we had about 9,000 employees around the United States in 18 distribution centers. He said, you should spend 70 to 80% of your time in nothing but communicating, talking, the values, what the company represents, and how you think it should be run. So he totally rechanneled my management style and how I did business. So if you're around people that have a great deal of values, ideas, they can change and mold you. That's where ethics come from. The third idea is to discover yourself. Do we really know who we are, who you are as an individual? And that's the hardest person to discover. Boy, it's sure a lot of fun pointing out the weaknesses of other people or watch the talk shows, critical of what leaders do. But our real job is to understand ourselves, who we are, what we want to become, and how we interact with other people. And if you will see yourself and what your tendencies are and how you can better channel of showing deep interest in other people, but then the ethics shine through. We have a lot of glitter in the United States of public people, from entertainers to athletes to politicians and everyone else. But deep down, who do we admire the most? We admire people that have great ethical standards and people who are making a contribution. They're making life better for others, and they're communicating with others. So as we're working on the ethics, it's awful easy to give ethical advice to others, but that's something we need to do for ourselves. Discovering ourselves and who we are and how we interact with everyone we come in contact with. The last idea I'd like to talk about is change. Is that difficult? Think of how, from the time you've been up this morning to just before you came here, you've done a few different things than you did yesterday, but aren't your routines about the same? Sure they are. We're all creatures of habit, and we get out of that habit, and it destroys us. And we're in a world that's in a magical change. We were talking with the Sloans about our grandchildren. I have 5 grandsons. The oldest one's 7. I have one that's 6 that lives in Salado. And I went to see him a couple of Saturdays ago, and he said, Papa, you know what Angry Birds are, that program they have? He said, Papa, can I borrow your iPhone so I can do Angry Birds? So I was trying to turn it on for him, and I was a little slow, and he's 6. And he said, Papa, I've showed you twice. I'm not going to show you again how to do that. Is this a different world we're in today? When you just think these young people that are here today, the ones that are 8 and 10 years old, of how they whiz and how comfortable they are with computers. And Robert, how you and I struggle a little bit just to do the basic essentials, how good they're going to be when they're in leadership. The whole world is going to change dramatically. Who knows the name Mohammed bin Zizi? Anybody know who that is? Mohammed, he changed the world this time a year ago. Mohammed bin Zizi was an electrical engineer. He lived in Tunisia. He couldn't get a job. Unemployment in Tunisia was over 40%. He ran a fruit stand, but he didn't have the license to run a fruit stand. They closed him down twice. Third time he was running his fruit stand, a female policeman came over and slapped him, which is an insult in that country. It so destroyed him because he didn't have a job for his family. Lived in Tunisia that was totally dictated by dictators for over 40 years. And this was October last year. The next day, he went to the Capitol building, immersed himself with gasoline, set himself on fire, burned himself up. Now, there have been hundreds or thousands of people in countries all over the world who have destroyed themselves that way, but we never heard about them because the dictators of all those Middle Eastern countries, but many other countries, they totally controlled the press, they controlled the newspapers, they controlled the radio, TV. But what was different here was the internet. This got out on Facebook and other things, and people began to say in Tunisia, and you remember Tunisia was the first country that there was a revolution in. Remember the next country it went, no one ever dreamed, was Egypt. There was a country of over 75 million people. And within the space of about 2 more months, it occurred there. Look how it has moved all through the Middle East. And what the dictators couldn't stop was the internet or mobile phones. You can't control that. Communications is going to change. The way we live here, the way they live all over the world is going to change. So I challenge you, as we live and we think things are complicated today, or just wait another 5 or 10 years. Robert, I can remember in 1954, I was taking a freshman psychology course at Baylor. And the question on one of the tests was that this was 1954, so you can imagine how we were living then. The question on that test was that we have more stress and difficulties of life today than our forefathers had in the 1920s. You know what I answered? Yes, we got more stress. When I got the paper back, Robert, I got a 0. I said, no. Their conditions were very limited then, but they didn't have medical care, they didn't have transportation. Life was a struggle. The stress has always been there. You just think with the technology. I was in New York City yesterday. It's interesting to walk down any major street in New York and see somebody that's not talking on the phone. Do we see it here in Houston? I live near downtown in Houston, and I love to jog around the Toyota Center in Minute Maid Park. And one morning I was jogging around Minute Maid Park, and there was a homeless man there, and as he was in his sleeping there, he was talking on his mobile phone. I thought that was unusual. So I mentioned that to a friend of mine later in the day. I said, this homeless man was 6:30 in the morning, was talking on his mobile phone. I thought that was interesting. He said, well, do you know who he was talking to? And I said, no. He said he was talking to his stockbroker. Life is different. Life is changing. Ethics are going to be more critical and harder as we zoom forward into our society because of the quickness and how fast we're going to know of events today, and even more so in the near future. There's going to be no hiding anywhere in any part of life. And it's going to be there. The spotlight's going to be on us, and we can make a mistake. And you just look at the daily, almost daily scandals of prominent people we see constantly in the United States. Goes so fast, can't change. ethics is going to be so much more important than we have in the past. I was fortunate in preparation for business and for life of going to a university, Baylor University, just as you're going to Houston Baptist University. Many of the business professors tricked me. I thought we were studying accounting and other business courses, but they were teaching me not only the basics of those business, but they were teaching me ethics. I didn't understand it totally when I was going to Baylor, but later, because of those Christian professors in business, I saw later some of the thoughts and ideas they expressed to us when we were 18 or 20 years old, and it began to come out of us later on. So I really compliment you by being a student here at Houston Baptist and being surrounded by professors, environments, and good people that can really begin to mold and shape you as you move forward. I know none of you were around in 1959, but I was finishing a MBA program at Michigan State University. And I'd gone there. That was one of the early, really highly ranked MBA programs in 1958 and 59. And we were finishing the program. It was a 2-year program, and there were 72 of us in our class. And the dean of the Graduate School of Business there, his name was Dr. Kenneth Wilson. Shows the importance of having high caliber, high ethical, good communicator. He was the clearest communicator I've ever seen. And as we were finishing our program, he called us into an auditorium, the 72 of us, an auditorium about like this, and he said, you know, we're going to be graduating you all in a couple of days, and your family and your friends are going to be so proud of you. But he said, in the 2 years you've been here, I'm not really sure we have taught you a great deal that's going to make a lot of difference in your life. I thought, my gosh, we busted ourselves here for 2 years. You're saying he's not sure. He said, we taught you all kind of theories, ideas, case studies. We've done it all, and you've complied, but I'm not sure we've given you a lot of practical ideas. And he said, before you graduate, I'd like to give you 4 ideas that could shape your life. He said that to us in 1959. It's as clear today as he said in 59. And it shows the influence of a high integrity person of high ethical standards who really cared about other people. His 4 ideas were, his first one is, he said, dare to dream, it's free. And this applies more today than it did in 1959 with computers. You know, isn't it amazing if you wonder something? Robert, we used to have to go to the library at Baylor, and now we can just Google it, and then without doing anything, there's the answer. His idea was, dare to dream, it's free. And he said, let your mind explode with what your dreams are. Well, the Houston Astros have been a major league team since 1962. We're going to start the 50th year next year. We've never won the World Series. Every morning when I hop up, I picture the commissioner of baseball handing the Astros the World Series trophy. Is that okay? Is that first idea? Dare to dream, it's free. The second one, he said, operate out of your imagination, not your memory. And his thought was there, what's hung in our memory? Bad things. In 1952, I was a sophomore in high school in Cameron, Texas, and I asked the prettiest girl in high school to go to the movies. What do you think she told me? No! That was 1952. I can tell you where I was standing. I can tell you how I felt. And his idea was, operate out of your imagination. You got that beautiful mind. Create things. Rub out the bad things. Third idea, seek adversity. The lines are shorter. And his idea again was, what do most people try to do in life? What do we spend most of our time doing? Robert, I worked hard at Baylor trying to avoid 8 o'clock classes than I did studying. Do they still try to do that? But his idea, seek adversities, adversity, the lines are shorter. What do most of us do in life? And I'm guilty too. Take the easy way out. He said, figure out where everybody else is going and just go the opposite direction. Fourth idea was walk with elephants. Robert Sloan is an elephant. Anybody ever said that of you before? And his idea there was, he said, visualize that you're in Africa and there's two giant peaks. And between these two peaks is a swinging cable bridge. And a flea and an elephant went across this cable bridge, and it bounced up and down violently when they went across. When they got to the other side, the flea said to the elephant, "We shook things up, didn't we?" Said, hang out with elephants. That's what my mother was trying to say. It's been fun talking with you tonight. Can you ask some questions and give me some sound advice? I still need mentors and people that can help me. The most important part of life is integrity, honesty, value. You're not going to be measured by how much money you've made, how many degrees you've got, other awards. The kind of life you live and how you impact other people is how you're going to be measured. Anybody have any good ideas for us? I can't see, so could somebody stand up out there and say? Robert, we have an awful quiet group here. Yes, ma'am.
I want to thank you for speaking today. It's been very meaningful for me because I heard you speak 35 years ago to my MBA class.
Wow.
So back then I remember that you told us that you have some special things that you say to people that are on the defeated side. That, you know, maybe they suffered a loss in the Astros game, or maybe people that you work with that are just going through a tough time. Would you kind of tell us a little?
Well, part of our response, all of us have down times. Boy, they're glorious mountaintop experiences for us all, but all of us go through discouragement, disappointments. And that's the role of a leader, that he seeks out these people and tries to do encouragement. Gives them something to think about and to move them forward. You're helping that person, but you're really helping yourself, because it gives you a sense of accomplishment, but it gives you another sense that you're doing something for the good of someone else, not just for yourself. So I think that's a part of ethics, is seeking out and seeing how your impact affects other people. Any other thoughts? I just can't see back there, but yes, ma'am. All right, your question is, how do you decide to really get involved and said that's worth my time and my effort? Is that sort of the question? Yeah. You know, when I get on a commercial airplane, and particularly if you're flying up to the East Coast where it's very congested, or you're flying there in bad weather, before I turn right to go to the seat, I turn left, turn my head left, and there's two pilots sitting up there. If I see one with kind of some gray hair sitting up there, I think, yippee, this guy knows what he's doing. He's been here for a while, and he's going to get us there safely. Part of this, as I said, a Major League Baseball player, to get to the major leagues, it takes 6 years or more in the minor leagues to get there. In life and in business and in leadership, it's judgment. You gain judgment after a period of time of experiences, and so you see opportunities, and that, I think, helps you prepare. That's something I would like to be involved in. It's just like coming to this program tonight when they invited me to come, And I saw the subject was ethics, but it was going to be young people. It's from young people that you gain a better perspective in life. So I think look at what the organization is or the individual's trying to accomplish. Will that be a broadening experience? And if it is, invest in it. In Central Texas, there is a large hospital system. The Sloans are know of it, and others. It's a large hospital system called Scott and White. Scott and White is 107 years old. It's most unique. It's a group practice. The physicians all work for Scott and White. They're employees of Scott and White. Have about a little over 1,100 physicians, and they work for Scott and White. Scott and White is a teaching hospital for Texas A&M College of Medicine. Several years ago, I've been the chairman of the board for several years. Several years ago, Scott and White was having, as many healthcare systems do, was having some financial trouble. And I learned from asking a lot of questions that if a hospital was a teaching hospital, it increases the cost of doing business around 26 to 27%. As I was meeting with the physician group, they were wanting to get paid more money, solve some financial problems. I said, if we ceased to become a teaching hospital, we could lower our cost 26 to 27%. Is that what you want? Asking a physician group. What do you think their answer was to me? I was amazed. No. We came here because Scott and White was a teaching institution. We know we could make more money, but we are personally better physicians because we're associating with these young medical students. They got new ideas. They've just gotten out of the undergraduate work. They make us better physicians. But even more important than that is how we feel in 8 and 10 years when they're out practicing being a physician. These physicians were willing to reduce their salary in order to be a teaching hospital. I think that's a good example as we live our lives. It's not all about money or rewards, but how we make a positive impact. So you got to evaluate how things are done. Any more thoughts or ideas? Yes. In McLane Company, the company grew and developed. We grew 30% or more for 32 consecutive years. So at the end, we had 9,000 employees spread around the country, and it got to be a bigger challenge. And as you're doing more business, the deals, the exposure, the decisions are bigger. They're tougher. And, if you'll say, no, we're not going to do that, then somebody said, well, can we tell you how much business that'll cost us if we say no? So life gets more complicated as it goes. So I've just found the best way to deal with the complexities and as you go forward is to upfront state what you stand for. In McLane Company, our mission statement was honesty, integrity, high Christian principles. We said that to all of our employees. We had employees of all kind of faith, but we said that was our motto, what we're going to stand for. And we had employee meetings every 2 weeks, and we said, hold us accountable for them. And so it makes it easy, because I've been in business meetings where something was, not quite right, and some employees say, hey, Drayton, we shouldn't be doing that. We'll gain market share or advantage by doing it, but that's not ethical and not fair. So rather than big, gigantic decisions, is put how you're going to do business in the hands of the employees, and they make most of the decisions, and it doesn't come monumental to you. You just make those decisions every day. Any more? Yes. Run as fast as you can. It's the best motto. Isn't that what my mother was trying to say to me? And we all get in bad environments sometimes. We all get there, and we can't make immediate changes. But put your guard up, but make sure your decisions are the correct decisions. Look at the issue that just emerged 2 days ago at Penn State. If the right decision had been made 2 years ago or whenever it should have been, it wouldn't have escalated to where it is today. So, you know, it takes courage sometimes to be in a group that's 8 or 10 people or 30 or 40 people and say, that's not right, that's not ethical. But you have, if they can't meet the standards that you represent, you should move on. That's tough to say, but long term, it's very helpful. Yes. Well, again, that's, as we were just talking, if you're in the right type of environment, right corporation or group of friends, you're out somewhere and it evolves into something that's different than what your personality is, walk away from it. In our company, and many of you, Archie Dunham here was the CEO of Conoco Phillips. Antitrust rules, or Archie, aren't they one of the biggest rules that you've ever heard? And we had an antitrust attorney. His name was Jack Izzard. He worked for King & Spalding in Atlanta. And he told an interesting story that I had him come talk to all of our executives every year on antitrust. And he was talking about back in the early 60s, there was a corrugated box industry. And as you know, in antitrust laws, competitors can't get together and fix prices or carve up territories or do something like that. And he said the corrugated box industry was meeting secretly, competitors were, and were fixing prices and carving up territories. And there were 6 or 7 companies that were meeting from time to time and doing that. It's totally illegal. And you go to jail for it. But anyway, he said a new executive for one of the box companies thought it was an industry meeting, and he went in his hotel room, and there were 8 or 10 other executives in there, and he saw what they were doing. He said there were 4 or 5 pitchers of ice water on the table in crystal pitchers. He saw the illegal things these people were talking about, that he, after he clearly knew this was wrong, he stood up and picked up one of those pitchers and threw it against the wall, and it broke and, you know, scared everybody. Later, the federal government knew of that meeting, and they indicted everyone in that room except that one guy that threw the pitcher in there, because he threw the pitcher against the wall and walked out of the meeting. He did something dramatic. I heard him say later, they had him in one of the meetings, he said that kept him from going to jail, because if he had just sat there and seen the illegal things that were going on there and then walked home or gone back to his home, not participate, but he was just there. So we all have to be on our toes and make sure that who we're with, what we're doing, is the correct and right things. And sometimes you don't have to make the decision instantly, but after a period of time, you certainly need to understand that. Well, I should bring Archie up here. He's had more experience, but I've had businesses all over Europe, have businesses in Asia now. And as you know, the American law is you can't bribe any kind of officials in any other country. That's against American law. But there are a lot of other countries, Archie, that don't practice that law. But if you do it, you get arrested here in this country. And it's very hard to do, because you're working at a disadvantage many times, that your competitor from another country that doesn't have the laws that we have then it puts you at a disadvantage. But you just have to accept that. You have to accept that. These are the rules, these are the ethics that you have to do. So it does put you at a disadvantage being an American and much higher ethical standards. A good example of that 2 or 3 years ago was a company called Siemens, one of the largest companies in the world. And they're a German company, and they, in some of the Asian countries, did a lot of bribes to get business, and it almost destroyed the entire company. And they were one of the most successful companies in the world at that time. It cost hundreds of executives their jobs. Many went to jail. So you've got to do the right things no matter where you are. Was there another question? Well, there are a lot of ways to do it. You know, some you can get to know personally and ask them for their help and advice and just be with them. I think that helped Michael, did it not? A number of executives he was with the Houston Astros and McLane Group helped him as he was doing others. So you can observe it as you go, or you can seek them out and ask them to spend time with you. You know, this is really what a medical student does when he's doing his residency. You know, he's gone to college for 4 years, he studied medical school for 3 years or 4 years, and then he's following doctors around and they're mentoring him of how to interact with the patient. That's, whether it's business ethics, leadership in business, is to find people that you can spend time with or just associate with, or find others and pick out leaders and find books and writings about them or their life. It's fascinating. Pick out George Washington and pick out the many, many multitude of books that have been written about him, all different facets of his life. He had several different careers. But you can study them and learn and never have met that person. And particularly with the internet, it is so easy to learn today. To end, can I give a slight challenge? Another mentor of ours was a man named Maurice Mascarenhas. Maurice was from Bombay, India, and early in his life, some Catholic missionaries saw in India what a quick mind, skills, ability to communicate was most unusual. And when he finished high school there, the Catholic Church paid for him to go to the University of Pittsburgh, and he got an undergraduate and a graduate degree in electrical engineering, ultimately worked for Westinghouse General Electric. But Maurice had a great communication skill. And he ultimately became a management consultant, did a lot of work with us in McLane Company, but just his crystal clear way to see things and to explain things was very unique. And in our company, which most corporations, I know Archie dealt with this, you dreaded to see September and October come because that was when you started budgeting. Remember that, Archie? For the next year. That was never fun. That's never fun. But anyway, our company was growing year after year, and we were having all of our top executives in for a budgeting session for about 10 days, and each division head had to present their budget. And each executive, I thought, was presenting a budget totally unrealistic to what he could do. And this went on for a day or so. And then the second day, Maurice said to me, he said, "Drayton, why don't we recess for a while and let's go in your office and talk?" So we went in the office and he said, "I'm not sure what you're up to, but you are pulling back people that have worked with you for years. They're proven leaders. They know what they're doing, and you're pulling them back." I said, "Maurice, most of them don't have sense enough to know that they can't do what they're trying to tell me they can do." And he said, "Drayton, part of the problem of life, leadership, whatever we're trying to accomplish, we don't really understand what we can do." And he said, "I would like to give you a mental challenge. Would you accept it? And I said, sure. So this was about 25 years ago. Can I give you Maurice's mental challenge? He said, I want you to visualize in your mind a highway bridge that's about a mile long, but only 2 lanes wide. So somewhere that you've been, a highway bridge that's about a mile long, it's only 2 lanes wide. And I said, I got it. There's one right outside of Temple going towards Gatesville, 2-lane bridge. He said, I want you to drive your car with your mind across that bridge at 70 miles an hour. And as you're driving that car across the bridge, coming the other way are going to be 6 other cars and 5 18-wheel trucks. You're going to meet coming the other way. He said, can you drive your car across this bridge, face those other vehicles, and go 70 miles an hour? I said, absolutely. He said, my question to you now is, with your mind, I want you to remove the railings on this highway bridge. Can you now drive for a mile, meeting all that traffic, with no bridge railings? And I said, absolutely not. Can you? He said, well, then I only have one other question for you. In your adult life, how many bridge railings have you run into? He said, I've never run into any of them. Then his question was, why do you need them? His point was, we accept a lot of things in life we can't do, don't want to take on, too big, too challenging, too hard, or our ethics are too demanding. He said, let it go. Let it go. You don't need all these things that you have. Thank you.